Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. The NBA Finals are set. We'll talk about the Nuggets and Heat. We'll talk about fallout from the Celtics loss in Game 7. We've got a bunch of news to break down as well, some stuff on the trade front, things that might be going on draft night, too, to get into. As always, lots to talk about going on around the NBA. Before we dive into a quick reminder, subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. And of course, over on Apple Podcasts, we'd love to get that 5-star rating and review. It takes like 20 seconds and is a great way to help out the show. Keith, how are you holding up, man? How are you doing? I will freely admit I was rooting for this outcome. You knew that.
Of course.
But I will say, in the moment, in the midst of the celebration from the Lakers side of things, I felt for you, man. Like I really did. I mentioned it on our show. Like I feel terrible for Keith because that's a brutal way for this all to go down, to get that hope of coming back and winning 3 and hey, we're going to do this. We're going to set history and all that. And then to have that kind of a dud performance in Game 7, that's brutal. And I definitely felt for you in that moment.
Yeah, it's funny thinking about the game itself. I don't know that it would have rather have had like the gut punch of a buzzer beater loss or like the fact that like it was basically over with 10, 11 minutes to go. And you kind of like were able to take the next half hour to like make your peace with it, right? Of like, all right, this isn't going to happen. You know, where do we go? And of course, because it's, you know, the world we live in, and because it's what I do, I instantly started getting a lot of, all right, how do they fix the roster? You know, what about this trade? What about that trade? And it's like,
right,
good Lord, like the box isn't even ready yet for the death of the season. Like we don't
the
need
buzzer
to
hasn't sounded.
yeah. I mean, let's breathe here. But I get it, right? That's just some people, that's the way they cope, right? They want to move along, and let's be real. There's probably far worse ways you could cope than saying, how do we fix the roster and what do we do? So yeah, I loved the comeback. I had a ton of fun with it, right? There was a point in Game 4 where I said, I'm just gonna have fun with whatever happens the rest of the way, because it was like they're at that point I was like, they're not going to win the series, so just have fun with it. And we had a bunch of fun. I mean, I tweeted out after each win the Game of Thrones meme of what do we say to the god of death, not today, right? And all that stuff. So and then obviously, by the time Game 7 started, I thought they were going to win. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they no-showed. They were terrible, and Jason Tatum got hurt, but that's not why they lost. It's probably closer, and maybe they win. I don't know, but I mean, they were awful. Jalen Brown had a really tough game. Malcolm Brogdon was just a shell of himself after he got hurt midway through the series. Just a complete mess. And credit to the Heat, right? That team is, for talent-wise, you would still probably take a whole bunch of Celtics over most of the Heat players, but they execute super well. They play hard all the time. They play together all the time. There's no panic in that team at any point. In games, probably the only guy I think who looked even remotely shook in the series at all was Bam Adebayo. I didn't think he had a great series at all. So, but Butler was tough. And then Caleb Martin turning into the greatest shot maker the NBA's ever seen.
Right.
I don't even know what you do with that. Now, part of it is, maybe stop leaving them open. Like, let's get out on them. If it's a game or two, then you're like, all right, it is what it is. But 7 games of this, so yeah, man, it's frustrating today. It sucks. The day after the season ends, for your team always sucks. But it's there's more to go. You know how I get at this time of year anyway. I get a little melancholy because we're down to at most 7 games left that count. So I want 7 of them for sure. And then then we kind of go forward from there.
So I'm glad. It sounds like you're not as crushed as I was afraid you might be after that, because I was talking about this.
It's also like 16 hours later. So
with that, and that helped, right? There's some processing there, right? Don't like, I was talking to obviously some Lakers fans, some of the guys with Lakers Nation, and saying like, hey, like obviously if you had to pick beforehand, would you rather go 7 games or would you rather get swept? Of course, you'd rather go 7 games, right?
Sure.
You'd rather do that than get swept. I mean, we've got the embarrassment of getting swept on our side. But from an emotional standpoint, the way it played out to come all the way back and win those 3 like that, I think the emotional gut punch is probably worse on the Celtics side of things than from the Lakers side, even though, again, I think it's more honorable or whatever you want to call it to make it all the way to 7 games and not just get swept in 4. That's not great. But that had to take its toll on Celtics fans in general. You think it's over, and then suddenly you get hope again, and then you get that letdown, you get crushed. That stings.
Yeah, I mean, what do we always talk about, right? That Zendaya quote from the Spider-Man movies of,
Yeah.
You never believe in anything because then you never get let down. Or I butchered whatever the quote is, but that's where it goes. And,
if you expect disappointment, then you'll never be
yes,
disappointed.
you're never disappointed. Yeah. Yes.
Something like that.
So, I think people, what a horrendous way to live life. Like, I would be so like such a miserable person if I actually lived life that way. But I get it. Some people do. And then I think, though, they're lying to themselves when, one, I don't think they always expect disappointment. And two, I think there were still people I know from Twitter, some of the names who were like, yeah, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. They're going to lose. And it was like, damn it, they lost. How did this happen? And they're still angry. So it's like, I mean, if you really thought that, like, you should have made your peace with it long ago. I think for me, and I wrote this for Celtics blog today in my penultimate piece for them. I've got one more article I write for the site before I move on from them. But it was basically, it's the kind of the thought of like, is it better to have never loved than to have loved and lost, right?
Uh-huh.
And for me, it's, I look at it as I'd rather be in there in the fight than just go down. And hand up, my last kind of bastion of irrational fandom was the Patriots for years. And I was the one who, if they lost in the Super Bowl, I was like, this team sucks. They should have just gone 0-16 and gotten the first pick, right? Because that's how fandom works, right? You get all crazy and you say stupid, ignorant stuff. So I get it. There was a part of me that's like, man, if you were just going to do this, you might as well get swept and saved us all the time. And, Trevor and I could have moved on the off-season previews and everything else. But part of it is like, nah, I'd rather be in there in the fight. In the end, of course, you'd rather win, but, give me the chance to go down semi-swinging, even if that's what we could call last night, versus just being out in 4. I don't know. I'm probably just all over the place now.
No. It's fully understandable, but I know what you're saying there. But we need to get into like the Jalen Brown piece here.
Sure.
But this is, I guess, this is a little more personal. Was it different for you? Because I don't know, you put it out there on Twitter. I'm assuming most of our viewers probably know, but you're not going to be covering the Celtics next season. You're covering the entire NBA. So, and you've covered the Celtics for a long, long time. You've followed this team your entire life. Was that a different feeling? Like, did that change in any way the way you felt in the aftermath of that game?
Yeah, for sure. That part was definitely tougher to swallow. There's twofold, right? And just to give everybody a peek behind the curtain, when you cover a team, as each of us have for a long time, part of you wants things to go as long as you can, because as long as there are games, there's always content, right?
Yeah.
The minute there are no games, you're having to go out there and search. And that's when, unfortunately, part of this game is, oh, hey, random corner of the internet says, maybe this team could do this. And you're kind of like, all right, let's jump on it, because we literally have nothing else to talk about if we don't do that. So there's that part of it, right? There's a selfish part of, hey, the deeper they go, and I could tell you, well, I'm not going to obviously get into the numbers, but I could tell you the people who read my stuff went way, way up in the NBA Finals last year, because there's 2 teams playing, right? And if you're interested in reading about the games, you're going to get a bunch of people reading your stuff. So, like, selfishly, I was with that. But yeah, mostly on a personal level, it sucked. I would be lying, and I wrote this today. I had a whole plan in my head of like, they're going to win the title, and I'm going to go out with what should have been MJ moment of they win the title, and I'm going to write my last takeaways article and call it good and be done, and I can go out that way. And instead, I went out with man, this isn't how you want things to end, and it's it's a little bit like you could get super melancholy and go down a path of like there's never this is just how life works. There are no happy endings and all that stuff. But I don't believe that, right? That's just not how I'm wired. I don't think that way in general in my personal life. So I tend to look at it as, yeah, it sucks. It's over, and now we move on. And when I am able to turn on the transaction side of my brain, that's where it is. The calendar doesn't stop, right? It just moves ever forward.
That's
So it
right.
becomes like, hey, take your day, lick your wounds, you'll recover, and then we move on to whatever is next. And but because of that, I'm thankful to have my opportunity with Spot Track to expand my role with them going forward, which I'm super excited about. We've got a ton of cool stuff coming, and I'm super thankful to have like this show where we don't have the luxury to sit here and for days, lament the end of a season. It's now we move on because the off season is right around the corner and there's a million things coming and a ton of stuff to cover. So I'm thankful to be able to kind of, pick up the pieces and move in that direction.
Yeah, the basketball is getting closer to stopping, which means we're only going to get busier,
Yeah.
which is bizarre, but that's the way it goes.
And something no one but people who really love the game get. Right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody else is like, oh, the season's over. You must be happy to be on break. And it's like in like 2 months. Like,
no, I'm getting Woj bombs at 3 a.m. Like that's what that means. And I'm running to talk about Kevin Durant getting traded.
Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Nothing's gonna top that, man. That's gonna be the best show we did.
That was phenomenal.
Ever.
That was phenomenal. Both of us sleep deprived. And should we just go live? Yeah, let's just go live. Whatever.
Yeah, let's go live and see what happens. And then the crazy part is like how many maniacs tuned in to watch it.
Yep.
We're like, yeah, let's all watch with them and go nuts with this. So that's it literally is the last time I think I've been thrown back to the sense of like, hey, it's this is what it was like when NBA free agency started at midnight.
Yep.
Right. Like it was like the diehards were there only.
Oh, yeah. And then you get Luol Deng to the Lakers after a few, like right after I went to bed. Timofey Mozgov was immediate, but yes, those were that. Of course, that's the first thing that I think of. But that was a different world. We're living in a different world than we were back then, Keith. So
just 12 hours ago, whatever it was, just pancakes.
We're living in a different world than we were just 30 seconds ago. What are your thoughts on Jalen Brown? 8 turnovers, not good. A lot of Celtics fans frustrated with him. Where does it go from here? Because he is eligible for that Supermax deal.
Yeah, let's talk about it in the immediate. I think he did a great job owning it after the game. Like he basically said, "Look, I failed." Like, and that's tough, right? A lot of guys will say those things, but then you could almost sense they're like, I'm saying it because it's what I'm supposed to say, what everybody wants to hear, but I don't really believe it. Like he was hurting yesterday. I think he very much felt I had my opportunity with Jason Tatum hurting. And it's just because it's the way, the cynical nature of the internet. I heard people saying like, I don't even think Tatum really got hurt. I didn't even see anything. Like they clearly showed way more times than anyone should have been comfortable with his ankle rolling badly. And then he limped around for the next 40 plus minutes, right? So it's just, whatever.
So what is that? Just like a conspiracy theory? People are saying, well, he wasn't hurt. He wasn't actually hurt. He was just, he just didn't feel like playing. It's like, no, he's in a game 7 and decided I'm not going to play well today. Come on.
And it's not a lot of people, unfortunately, right? It's always the craziest people or the loudest people that'll, and you know how this goes. They're the ones who are in every single one of your tweets. Your tweet could be like, wow, I saw a really, cool rainbow today. And then they're like, yeah, well, let me tell you about why this sucks with the team we support, right? So it's, but anyway, Jalen Brown was bad, right? I think he knew, hey, this is my chance to kind of step up here, take the team to the finals. And he just didn't come through, right? He was really awful, shot terribly, took bad shots. Turnovers were just atrocious. There was a point where it was like, you got to get the ball out of his hands. Like, and that sounds crazy when, Tatum was basically relegated to being a spot up shooter. But yeah, it was really rough. So that's the immediate, right? Is, there's no trying to defend it. And I don't feel bad saying it because he said it himself, right? So I don't feel like it's piling on or anything. I feel like it's just what it is. Now, moving forward, the big unanswered question for the Celtics is, what do you do? He's super max eligible. That means as of the current projections right now, 5-year, like $290 million deal. is
Oh,
what he is eligible to sign for. He is not a free agent this summer,
no.
so everyone is clear on that. Because I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, he could just leave this summer. He can't. He's got one more year under contract. That 5-year Supermax extension would kick in after this coming season. So the other option is the Celtics could still give him the designated player of 5 years, but they could offer him, less than that, right? They could say, how about 250 million? How
Sure.
about 10 million or whatever it is, right? They could, they could do that. They're probably not going to, because the sense is with all these things, give me the most you can give me and we'll go forward from there. And he's well within his rights to ask for that, because he did make second team All NBA this year, right? So he should feel like that's where it goes. Now, what's disappointing, I want to clear this up, and hopefully people can then spread this to other folks, is I've listened to a lot of podcasts today and a lot of, just time in the car and other stuff today. So I was just filling it with podcasts. There is two prominent podcasts said today, well, maybe he leaves and another team just gives him that deal. That cannot happen.
They can't.
You can only get that from the Celtics. You are only Supermax eligible from the team that either drafted you or if you were acquired while still on your rookie deal. So Brown can only get that from the Celtics. So that's a little disappointing, because I've already seen some people run with that and say, well, maybe Portland will trade for him. Portland will just give him the Supermax. They can't. They'd be limited to giving him the 30% max. And just so everybody knows, and the only reason I'm talking about this, because I literally just tweeted about it, maybe 10 minutes before we started here, is Boston can give him 5 years, 290 million. Another team, if they signed him outright in free agency, 4 years, 184 million. Even if we go to the 4-year versus 4-year comp, which is probably a little more fair, right? Because at this point, a 5th year would probably be a player option, and he'd probably bounce out. 4-year versus 4-year comp, 224 million from Boston, 184 million from another team. So that's where we're at. Now, does he want to do something different? Sure, maybe, right? I don't know. I think there's a part of me that says Celtics should offer him the Supermax. If he balks, now you can trade him free and clear without any worry of pushback, because that probably says he's leaving, right? One player has turned down the Supermax in the time it's been a thing. That was Kawhi Leonard, and we all knew where that was going, right? So in this case, that could be where this goes with it. My guess is they either offer him really close to the Supermax, or they offer it to him. He then signs it. It becomes a 1-year trade restriction, and then we figure this out, a year, 2 years, 3 years into the deal where it goes.
Keith, on a Celtics team that one of their strengths is depth, right? Depth that most teams are, well, right. But I mean, you look at this, I mean, Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, Derek White. I mean, Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon are, two guys that most teams would be jealous of having in your rotation, right? Robert Williams, right? You've got these guys. Now, again, we can talk about Grant Williams and all that kind of stuff, and what the Blake Griffins of it all, and everything else. But in general, there's a really strong rotation here, and is given that structure in the new era of the super tax, is it feasible to give a super max to Jalen Brown, knowing what's coming for Jason Tatum? Is that going to require a restructuring of how this roster is put together?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? If this was the current CBA just rolling forward, we'd probably say just pay him. And you know what? Then if you don't want to pay him, that's on ownership right now. That is truly ownership cheaping out and saying, yeah, we don't want to pay that big of a tax bill. And then we can have all sorts of other discussions. Under the new CBA, it is designed to specifically break teams up when they get too expensive, right? And it's funny now, there's a whole bunch of Celtics fans that are like, so we're going to get penalized for drafting well? That's not fair. Yeah, guess what the Warriors fans have been saying for like 2 months now, since this kind of was floated out there is going to be a thing, right? Like they're basically drafted and developed players there outside of Andrew Wiggins. So it really is in a spot where, as you look at this team, it's like, it's just going to be really hard to add pieces once you get there. And I realize that's especially for the Celtics, because Brown's under contract, because Tatum's under contract. they wouldn't both be on the so-called supermax for a couple years at least, but you're basically just saying, all right, well, we're going to kick the can down the road. Maybe they do. Maybe that's the direction they go, and that's probably tends to be where I think they will go with this. But you can't do this and then re-sign Grant Williams for even 12 to 15 million dollars, and then keep Brogdon and keep White and do all the things you need to do. It's just going to be impossible. Teams are going to have to make basically impossible decisions. And the other thing is, before we get too deep into the Warrior type comparisons, the Warriors have won titles with that group. So they're doing everything they can to keep a title team together for kind of one more run. Celtics have been very, very, very good, because that's the other thing that's been bothersome today, just as you talk about emotions out of it, is that people are like, this team's never been good. Like, come on, just stop.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the mix every year. Like, I get it. They've never broken through and won, but like, we can't separate it into there's a title team and 29 teams that stink. Like, that's just not how it works.
That's just fandom by nature. We see that all the time over the Lakers side too, where they can play terribly, and if they win, everybody's happy. If they play amazing and they lose, everybody's pissed and the sky is falling, and that's the way it goes, right? I mean, that's kind of how we look at it. Oh, well, they haven't won any championships, so they must not be any good.
Yeah. Meanwhile, 28 other fan bases like, good Lord, would the two of you shut up? We don't want to hear from your 2 miles about these teams, right? I mean, right? That's I mean, that's part of the reality of the two teams that we are associated with. But for me, it is going back to your original question, is the new CBA and all of the restrictions that are coming over this year and into next year around super expensive teams. Those are all going to matter, right? They're all going to be huge into how you do business going forward. So that's going to be something, that we're really, really going to have to keep an eye on, with these teams, because that's just, where it's headed. It's just, we're going into a very different world with this. And it's probably, the reality is, it's probably going to be 2-3 off seasons before we fully understand kind of how teams are approaching this and what the quote unquote right way to build a roster is.
Yeah, it's going to be, and whoever figures it out first is going to have an advantage. Whoever figures it out first, which we'll talk a little bit about a certain exec that is now on the market in just a moment. Before we leave Celtics and Heat and all that kind of stuff, Nuggets Heat for the title. The Nuggets open as the favorite, which I think should be expected. But Keith, on this show, I think even going back to the play-in, I have literally picked against the Heat in just about every series. I definitely picked the Bucks over them.
That's right.
I picked the Knicks over them. Maybe I had them winning like one game in the play-in or something.
But I don't even remember. But
I don't recall off the top of my head. But I know I've picked against them in all 3 series in the Eastern Conference. I don't know. Like, can I? My head says the Nuggets are going to win this series, but then I'm also saying, you've picked against these guys 3 times and it's burned you. Do I keep reaching and try to grab that electrified cupcake one more time and pick against the Heat, or what? I don't know what to make of this series from that aspect, because Miami, on paper, the Nuggets should win, but I mean, the Knicks should have won, the Celtics should have won, the Bucks should have won, and yet here the Heat are. I don't know what to make of this.
First thought, electrified cupcake, amazing band name. Right. That's our band name. When we quit all this and we start our real like career as a band, that's our band name. So trademarked.
It's a turning point for the band.
Productions, right? I'm with you, man. I'm in the same boat. I said I feel like it's Nuggets in 6 or 7, and that's because I feel like it should be like Nuggets in 5, but I'm certainly not going to pick that. So I don't know. I'm probably just going to split the difference and say Nuggets in 6 just to be kind of done with it. But I mean, I don't know. It's so stupid because I'm like, the Heat just can't keep shooting this well. And 3 of 4, or I guess 2 of 3 series so far, they've done that. They've shot this well. So maybe this is just how it's going to go. I really don't know.
And I was saying the same thing with Denver. Like, my God, their difficult shot making was insane. But they just keep doing it. So I think the downside of this is this isn't going to get going to get nearly the coverage or the attention as Lakers Celtics would certainly. This is going to be a very good series, and I've already seen a lot of fans that are saying we don't care. We're not going to watch it because I mean, like the biggest star in this is Nikola Jokic, right? And again, he's 2-time MVP already and all of that, but he doesn't draw the excitement that some other players would. And I don't think that's correct that it should be that way, but he doesn't. He doesn't. So from a viewership standpoint, I think this is going to be a poorly rated NBA Finals. I think it's going to be an excellent Finals, though.
Yeah.
And so that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a couple of tweets last night, and it's probably just people being mad. And I think there's other factors, right, that exist from more prevalent now than when you and I started covering this. So they, a lot of people probably had money on Boston and were, real happy because of that, right? And those sorts of things. But as I look at it, I think it is in a position in this one where I saw some people like, I love the NBA. It's my favorite thing in the world, and I'm not watching this finals. And do you really love the NBA? Like, because I mean, I don't care who it is, right? It could be the, 2 G League teams that for some reason had to play in the finals. I'm going to watch it. Like, I don't know. I struggle with that part of it. Am I going to be emotionally invested in it? No, not really. Like, I don't like now I'm kind of,
that's where I'm at too.
Yeah. I don't really care. Right. I just want it to be, just give me 7 good games. Right? I don't want as many good basketball games the rest of the way as I can get. But yeah, man, these are 2 good teams, 2 well-coached teams, 2 teams that execute at a very high level. I think the most fun thing is going to be what does Spo do defensively to slow down Denver's offense? Like that's going to be a chess match. So yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to say Nuggets and I'm going to go Nuggets in 7 because they won.
That was my pick too.
So I'm just going to go Nuggets in 7 because whatever. So just, there it is. There's my pick because I really don't know what to expect.
That was also my pick. Was Nuggets in 7, and it was strictly me being optimistic that we're going to get 7 more games.
Yeah, and there's that, and I respect the Heat that much. I mean, I picked Celtics in 7 in the East Finals, and there was a chance I was going to get there in the oddest, most never thought of way possible, and and it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, it's not, I've been kind of a believer in this Heat team since they got through the next series. I just as dumb as it sounds, every once in a while there are like these teams of destiny, and you just kind of run with it.
Yeah, maybe that's Miami here. Maybe that's Miami. I mean, that would be an insane. I mean, we've got a 1 seed against an 8 seed. If the 8 seed wins the championship, like this would be an all-time playoff run.
Did you see? Gosh, I wish I could remember who had this. Might have been Micah Adams or Law Murray. They both are always good for like goofy, weird nuggets about not Denver Nuggets, but like
I know what you meant.
Nuggets of information. And it was the last time an 8 seed made the finals. It was the New York Knicks,
right? Yeah,
against the San Antonio Spurs, who were a former ABA team going into their first ever NBA final. And now we have an 8 seed Heat against the former ABA team in the Nuggets in their first ever NBA final. So it's kind of weird right now, like those things happen. But all right, we've got a lot of news to get into.
We
still here, so we should let's keep the show moving. Just shout out to that one guy. There you go. We talked about the Celtics quite a bit here for that guy who was incessantly in our mentions on the show comments and on Twitter about how we never ever talk about the Celtics when they lose, but I make you talk about the Lakers for hours on end after that happens. And I try not to even push the Lakers stuff because I know you've already done it on 13 other shows by the time
that's right.
You and I sit down and talk. So there you go. There you go. Play that, over and over and over again until your heart is content.
We talked Celtics for almost 30 minutes there. So there you go. Have at it. The big news, and maybe this was, if you were reading between the lines, we kind of had an idea this was coming. Bob Myers leaving the Golden State Warriors. Is he the first one off the ship here? Is this him kind of seeing what's coming and saying, if I stick around for another year, this may not go the way I want it to go. Let me go out now. Is that what's happening here?
Are you calling him what was it? Robert Ismay, the guy who was the owner of the Titanic and got himself in a lifeboat when the ship was going down. He was the first one to be like, I gotta go. Women and
Hey,
children be
I'm a
dead.
history teacher, or was a history teacher, and I haven't heard that story. But
Yeah.
that's
I only know because of the movie. That's the only reason I know.
oh god, that movie. I
Because
haven't
he,
seen that movie in
yeah,
so long.
pushes his way through. And then they're like, yeah, sure, like get you on here. And like, yeah, and he got all sorts of like treated pretty awful after that because of it, if I remember right. So
Mm,
there it is. There's history corner for everybody.
there,
Yeah,
there we go.
I mean, we're gonna find out right now. Like, was he the one pushing? Like, let's keep this group together, keep this group
Mhm.
together. Is there people? Now it sounds. I don't think they've announced anything officially. I believe the press conference is maybe still happening right now.
This was Woj from ESPN saying, quoting Bob Myers though, saying he's done.
Yeah. Oh no, they're not. Bob Myers is done. I'm
Yeah.
talking about have they said who's taking over? Yeah,
Oh,
it
gotcha.
sounds like it's gonna maybe be Mike Dunleavy Jr. Who
Hmm.
kind of takes over. I believe Kirk Lacob, who's had a number of different roles. There is his dad is obviously the owner of the team. He's had a bunch of different roles. Sounds like they're both going to take on bigger roles. If that's the way it goes, we're going to find out. How do they feel about Draymond Green's upcoming likely free agency because he probably will opt out. How do they feel about keep adding salary to this team and becoming more expensive? How do they feel about Klay Thompson? Do you extend him or do you let that just go? These are all questions that are going to be answered over the course of the next full kind of calendar year plus, right? Because
Hmm.
we're not going to get all these answers in the next month here of this NBA offseason, but we are going to get a lot of answers coming up. By the way, NBA free agency opens in 1 month from today,
Let's go.
which is bonkers and crazy to think about. But
Mm.
so yeah, man, it's a great run for him though, right? Can't
Oh, for
say
sure.
anything otherwise. Multiple championships. I want to say for executives, I saw the stat today. He's only behind R.C. Buford and Red Auerbach as far as
Wow.
lead decision maker in terms of overall win percentage, which is pretty incredible when you're the guy who's run the Spurs dynasty and the guy who ran a team that won 11 titles, like that. So that becomes a whole thing there. So that's a yeah, man, that's crazy.
I've seen some negativity out there, like some
Sure.
Warriors fans say, well, he blew a number 2 pick by going fit over talent. And now he saddled you with Jordan Poole's deal and see you later. Peace out. I'm going to leave now.
Sure.
But I think that's overlooking so many of the good things. I mean, the Warriors obviously had a ton of success and people are just going to go negative no matter what. But yeah, look, everybody makes some mistakes. The question is, are those mistakes you can recover from? Are there mistakes you can win despite those? Because not everybody bats 1,000. Nobody is going to bat 1,000. And the Warriors have won a lot. They were the reigning champs from last season. I mean, Bob Myers has to get some of that credit for what's happened over this, what we have to call a dynasty for the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's 100% a dynasty, and right, and they very much tried to turn it into Spurs like, right? I think that's the only thing that I can describe for what they attempted to do with that Wiseman pick. They went for the kind of home run upside pick of, all right, as Curry and Green and Thompson all age out, we'll have Wiseman and Poole and
Mm-hmm.
whoever else, Kaminga and whoever else, comes to the forefront there with Wiggins as kind of the bridge piece in between, and we'll be great for 2 decades worth of time. And it just goes to show you like how absolutely crazy it is that the Spurs did that. Right now, it
Yeah.
obviously helps when you had David Robinson and Tim Duncan, leading the way for multiple years like that. But yeah, I mean, and even the Spurs, right? I've seen some people say, things like, well, they didn't even, they only won 5 titles. Only? Like, come on. Like, what are we doing? Right. And so, I mean, yeah, it's,
Oh man.
I don't know. I'm not saying he's above criticism because those are all fair criticisms. The Wiseman pick, the
Sure.
Poole contract extension. Sure, those are fair criticisms without a doubt. But I think the good he's done far, far, far outweighs the couple bad decisions he's made. So I'm kudos to him and good luck. And I'm guessing Mark Stein, I think, was the first one to report like he just wants a break, right? He wants to take a year off. My
That makes
guess is he
sense.
takes a year off, and next year, whatever GM, president of basketball operations, head decision maker title comes open, he's probably the first call on everybody's list.
100%. 100%. All right. The coaching carousel came to a stop in 2 locations. We got Adrian Griffin landing with the Milwaukee Bucks, Nick Nurse to the Philadelphia 76ers. Keith, the 76ers fired a doctor to hire a nurse. And I
Congrats
love
on
it.
being the 400th person to make that joke.
Right? I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
I think
it is
that
fun.
I think it's a funny little tidbit, I guess. Maybe not as good as the ABA thing with the Nuggets and the Spurs,
Sure.
but I'll take
Well,
it.
different categories, right? One's in the humor category, one's in the fact category, so we'll take
Sure.
them. I thought the best version of that joke was I think it was Ryan Bernardoni from Celtics Twitter who tweeted much like American healthcare, the 76ers replaced the doctor with a nurse and just expect it to all be fine. Which is pretty funny with that. But anyway, that's a whole other show. You can tune in for Trevor and Keith talk the state of the world and history and all that stuff later. We do that podcast privately and we'll never broadcast.
That's the the world front office show.
That's it. So the nurse hire, arguably the best coach on the market, right? I think probably fair to say. A little bit worried. He tends to push his guys really, really hard and play them an awful lot of minutes. Does he change that with Joel Embiid? Does that finally, does he unlock Joel Embiid? What happens? It's not the most versatile roster in the world in Philadelphia. I think that's being a little bit made much of. People he only does well with versatile rosters. I won a championship with Marc Gasol as the starting 5. Mm-hmm. And last I checked, Marc Gasol wasn't exactly sliding over and playing the 3.
Yeah, let's switch everything with Marc Gasol. Yeah, no, you couldn't do that.
So I think he's pretty good. I think it's going to be good. To me, far more than the coach hire. What happens with the roster, right? Is James Harden back? What do you do if Harden leaves? Where do you go around that? But I think that hire's good. The Adrian Griffin one, blessed by Giannis, apparently, was involved in the conversation. Mm-hmm. I thought very interestingly, Chris Middleton reportedly was either involved or invited to be involved. That to me says, well, they must have plans on Chris Middleton staying with the team because otherwise, why would you really want his input there? So,
does that mean Brook Lopez is not if Middleton is coming back?
I'm kind of thinking Middleton comes back for a lot less money than he could get. Not saying a lot less than what he makes right now. Comes back, and it's funny. I mean, couldn't you see Lopez just saying, "Yeah, give me another $12 million. I'm happy. I'm good. I don't want to play anywhere else." And
with a Disney World season pass, then yeah,
that's it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's still got his house here. Down. It's funny. It's down the road from me and about 5 billion miles away. It might as well be. But it's funny. He, I think the Bucks are going to do what they can to run it back. With that group. And Adrian Griffin, this is yet another guy who has toiled as an assistant coach for years and done the interview circuit for years and finally breaks through and gets his opportunity here. And we've seen, different levels of success with those guys. I know, a lot of people are, justifiably in Boston still angry with Ime Udoka, took the team to the finals. Joe Mazzulla took the team to the Eastern Conference Finals. Darvin Ham took the team to the conference finals, after a complete disaster of a start to the season. These, sometimes these guys just need their opportunity. So, I think we're in a spot where I think these are both good hires. No real problems for me.
All right, we got enough time to do a couple more here. We'll do the Pacers. Could be looking to move up in the draft by packaging picks. They have a couple of late firsts that they could look to use. They also have an early second-round pick. So I don't know how high up they could move, but just something to kind of file away as we get closer to the NBA draft, which is coming up June 22nd, that the Pacers may want to take some of these picks, put them together, and see if they can move up, if they can land somebody they're specifically targeting. Again, I don't know how far they're going to be able to move, but it will be interesting to see what they do there. And I think this is not the first news story we've heard on the draft. Obviously, there's been plenty of stuff, but this type of story is just going to become more and more common the closer we get to the draft. Just to be specific here, the Pacers, obviously they have the 7th pick, but they also have the 26th pick, 29th pick, and 32nd pick. So you could see them packaged together I guess potentially all 3 to see how far up they could move if the right move is there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the challenge, right? This is not the NFL draft, which is 7 rounds long, like second round picks just don't
Mhm.
hold that value like they do there. Even late first don't have the same value as a late first does in that draft. So there's never been like a super great, the NFL draft has that like points chart where it's like each pick is worth X points and like
Mhm.
they'll like add them together and they add up to this. There's never been a great version of that. I've seen several versions of it in the NBA, but never one that's like taken hold. It's like this is the one that everybody kind of universally uses. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, one, when you're at 7, there's only so far up you can go, right? One's off the table.
Yeah.
That would never be in play. I don't even think the Spurs would do it if the Pacers said you can have every single thing on our roster plus all these draft picks. I think the Spurs would still say, "No, we're good. We're gonna roll forward with Wembanyama." And that's
Yeah.
what I love Tyrese Halliburton. He's arguably one of my favorite players in the entire league, and they have other good stuff. The Spurs just aren't doing it. So anyway, now you're in a spot where it is all right. So how high up does that get you? What, 5? 4
Yeah, that's what I was
maybe?
just thinking. Like, if you're the Pistons and you've got somebody you really like, you would have to be totally convinced that the guy you would get at 7, you like just as much at 5, or the guy that
Yep.
you think you would take at 5 will be there at 7.
Yep.
Because otherwise, I don't know that. Like, I don't think, or my answer would be no. If I had any concern that the guy I wanted at 5 was not going to be there at 7, the 26th pick is not enough for me to make that move.
Completely agree. Yeah, it needs to be the Pacers are moving up for a targeted player that they really, really want. And, the other team, to your point, is like, all right, we don't want that guy. And the guy we want, we can get 2 picks later, 3 picks later, whatever it is. So, yeah, that's the challenge here. Now, what I will say, though, is awesome, right? I love that they're trying to be
Sure.
aggressive. Right. And they've got 27 million in cap space, too. And that's, built around a not bad returning core group of guys, right? You've got Halliburton, you've got Miles Turner in the fold, you got Benedict Matherin, you've got Andrew Nemhard, who was pretty good, Buddy Hield's still on the roster. Like, there's a lot of interesting players there at Indiana. All I gotta say for this offseason for them, please, for the love of God, come away with some size at the forward positions
Mhm.
because no more 4 guards around Miles Turner stuff. It was cute for a little
Yes.
while and then it didn't really work. So but yeah, I'm all in on them being aggressive and trying some stuff. Just
They
so I
might be
don't
able to.
forget.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
I
No,
was going to
finish
say
it.
they might be able to take 26, 29, or 32, like package and get like into the teens somewhere, or the
Maybe.
lower into the 20s. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's that type of, maybe you go,
Mhm.
hey, Brooklyn has 21 and 22. Could you get
Yep.
22 by putting together 26 and 32 or something? Like
Sure.
that. Maybe that's
That could
what they're
happen.
targeting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is, right? We don't know that it has to be moving up from 7, right? It could
Sure.
be, we want to package together some later stuff to get there. On the NBA draft, because I forgot to tell you to put it on the show sheet. Tomorrow is a huge day in the draft. It's the NCAA withdrawal deadline. So the vast majority of the early entry candidates have to withdraw by tomorrow if they're going to return to school. We've already seen several names come out on both sides, right? This guy's now staying in because they did well. This guy is returning to school, but tomorrow is a big day on the NBA calendar for guys to withdraw. The overall withdrawal deadline is, let me make sure I got it right. I think it's June 12th. Yeah, it's June 12th is the overall withdrawal deadline. So that's non-NCAA players. So the vast majority that's overseas players there. But that is that's still a ways away. But for the NCAA deadline, if they want to return and play in school next year, have to withdraw by tomorrow.
All right. Last story that we've got time for. I've talked about this a bunch over on Lakers Nation, but the Mavs, according to Mark Stein, not interested in D'Angelo Russell, Kyrie Irving double sign and trade. Not a surprise. The Mavs are letting everybody know they're not going to sign and trade Kyrie, period, which it would eliminate a lot of teams from being able to get him. And I think that's part of it. Right now you want to put out there a lot of strength and you want to dissuade teams from thinking, hey, maybe we can get in Kyrie's ear, through a back channel or whatever, and get him to push for a sign and trade. The Mavs are just saying, nope, no matter what, we will not help any other team get him. That's the front that you want to put out there right now. But beyond that, just being a strategic, stance that you should be taking right now. I wouldn't do that either if I'm the Mavs. I wouldn't want to swap Kyrie Irving for D'Angelo Russell. So I don't think there was ever anything really to that aside from just people connecting Kyrie to the Lakers, and oh, well, that's something they could do to get him, but I don't see why the Mavs would do that.
Yeah, to me, this would have to be it's Russell with a pick or two, and maybe give me something else I like off the roster. The challenges for the Lakers, so many other guys are free agents, so it'd have to be almost another free agent in a sign and trade there. But that's the challenge. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay Russell so much in a sign and trade to even match the salary for what Kyrie would presumably get. That's where it starts to go sideways. Right now, you can get around that by making it only the first year is guaranteed and the other years are not. But I don't know that D'Angelo Russell wants to do that either.
Right.
I think that's the part people always forget with sign and trades is like the sign part does come first, right? Because the player has to agree. So that's just where it gets a little messy. But this chalk me up as like, yeah, I'm not really surprised, but it's just further intel, another piece to kind of throw on the pile of stuff that we're hearing, and let's see where it goes. And we'll caveat what we always do. It is May 30th as we record this. We're a month away from free agency. A lot can and will change over the next month.
Absolutely. And we're going to keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of the NBA. So make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show. Don't forget to turn on those notifications, and then follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. All right. I think that's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.